Isn't that just the most heart-opening song? It's kind of like Auld Lang Syne. You wonder why you're crying, but it's just so beautiful. Thank you, Bodhi. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to August. I'm Reverend Karyl Huntley, and you are at the Golden Gate Center for Spiritual Living, where our vision is awakening personal transformation, so I hope you're all up for that. And the way we do that, our mission, is teaching tools for positive change. So we already had a tool for positive change, and that is that heart-opening song and the notion that we're all doing this all together. Whatever it is, we're all doing it together. So I'm glad I'm doing it with you. So our theme for this whole year is Your Joyous Life. And that's what we're all working on together, playing with together, and that is to be more joyful all of the time. And we're working through this wonderful little book that is not too spiritual on the surface, but boy, when you get into it, it really has some wonderful practices. It's called The Happiness Project, and so we're following the book for the themes throughout the year. So August is eternity. I thought that was kind of strange, actually. It's a funny time for eternity for me, the blazing summer. For me, eternity is in the dark time of the year when, you know, the winter solstice changes from the darkest night to the birth of the light. But here, our author wants us to be thinking about eternity in the blazing light of summer. And it actually makes some sense because she writes, I figured August was a particularly good time to focus on eternal things because we'd be taking our family vacation. As she goes on, stepping out of my usual routine would allow me to see more clearly the transcendent values that underlay everyday life. And so that's what we're doing, actually. We want to make everyday life, we want to make ourselves responsive to eternity in everyday life. And so the theme for the month is Eternity is Now. Isn't that a beautiful image of love and eternity? And so the common definition of eternity is where we enter after we die. But actually, in our teaching, eternity is all the time in every place. In the Science of Mind textbook, in the glossary, it says this about eternal: immortal, imperishable, uninterrupted, boundless, one of the appellations of God, or one of the labels or names for God. So that's what the teaching is about eternity. And I have this analogy of my own. You may like it, maybe you can think of another one, but I think of eternity as this unbounded field in which we live forever and ever and ever. And this life is like a bubble in it. And there may be lots of other bubbles, I don't know, but here we are in this bubble, smack in the middle of eternity, and a part of eternity. We can actually touch eternity at any moment, whenever we want. When we take our attention away from the circumstances and conditions and the day-to-day stuff that we do and the traffic and all of that stuff, when we take a moment to contemplate that which never changes, that which holds us, then we are touching eternity, and that's the goal for the month, is to touch eternity. So I think this is the perfect image of this person looking out into the lake, because I want to read to you the duck poem. Now, I think I read this duck poem to you not too long ago, but it is so perfect for today, and I've read it so many times that I just thought I'd share it with you once again. But this time, when I looked at it, I looked at the author, Donald C. Babcock, and I Googled him. He was a contributor to the New York Times for a long time, and he actually wrote this poem in 1947. So it's and there's like a whole website dedicated to this poem. So now we are ready to look at something pretty special. It's a duck riding the ocean 100 feet beyond the surf. No, it isn't a gull. A gull has a raucous touch about him. This is some sort of duck, and he cuddles into the swells. He isn't cold, and he is thinking things over. There is a big heaving in the Atlantic, and he is a part of it. He looks a bit like a mandarin or the Lord Buddha meditating under the bo tree, but he is hardly enough above the eyes to be a philosopher. He has poise, however, which is what philosophers must have. He can rest while the Atlantic heaves because he rests in the Atlantic. Probably he doesn't know how large the ocean is, and neither do you, but he realizes it. And what does he do, I ask you? He sits down in it. He reposes in it as if it were infinity, which it is. That is a religion, and the duck has it. He has made himself a part of the boundless by easing himself into it just where it touches him. And so, this is what we're going to do this month, is ease ourselves into the boundless, exactly where it touches us. So, this particular week, we have a lot to include because it's a big Sunday. The title of the talk is Earth Mother, Forgiveness, and Eternity. So I want to draw your attention to this beautiful, beautiful altar that Shawn did. And we have the Earth Mother in the center. We have some of her children around her, the flowers and the ivy. There's elements of earth, air, fire, and water on the altar. There's salt for purification. There's togetherness in the little family. So I want you to spend some time at the altar because it's just so perfect for today. So we're going to take this title, the Earth Mother, Forgiveness, and Eternity, and we're going to look at each one of them, and then we're going to put it all together. So the Earth Mother is important today because yesterday was the ancient holiday of Lunasa, or Lammas. And that is always on August 1st, and it's the first harvest holiday. It's when a lot of the vegetables are ripening and coming into harvest. So I want to read to you actually something that my son sent on the phone here, 31 delicious things to cook in August, because he said, this is what is in season. Apricots, bell pepper, beets, berries, cantaloupe, chard, cherries, corn, cucumber, eggplant, fennel, figs, grapes, green beans, green onions, kiwi, mangoes, nectarines, peaches, plums, scallions, summer squash, tomatoes, watermelon, and zucchini. That's what we're celebrating. That's what we're celebrating on August 1st, is all of these children of the goddess, the growing children, and also the grains. So the story goes that the Earth Mother loves her children so much, all of the zucchinis and each zucchini, each tomato, and every blade of grain. This is the goddess's hand just caressing her grain children. And she actually mourns when they are harvested, but she knows that they must be harvested so that others of her children may live. So I was, kind of cooking on this talk this week, and in my garden for the first time we planted a patty pan squash. Now the patty pans are those that look like little spaceships, little saucers, space saucers. And so there was one that was getting too big. It was like this big, and when they get bigger than that, the seeds are too mature and they don't taste exactly as flavorful. So it was, and the way they are, they're under these big leaves. And so I looked at the squash and I thought, I have to cut it. I don't want it to get any bigger. So that's the thing. I don't want it to grow anymore because I want to eat it the way it is. So I cut it off very consciously. And as I cut it off, I was very aware that I was separating it from that which nourishes it. And it will not get any bigger because I harvested it. And I had that feeling of, oh, this one isn't going to grow anymore. And now, for those of you that, and me, that go to the market and pick up, squash by the jillions and do whatever we do with them. This was a very, very new experience for me, to feel a little sad in cutting this squash off of the mother plant. I did it anyway, but I was definitely harvesting it, and I felt the mother say, oh, there goes one. There goes one of my children. So that's exactly what we are really working with this holiday. And so the next thing that we're working with this holiday is Forgiveness Day, because the first Sunday in August is International Forgiveness Day, and this has been going on for 19 years. So I heard from Frank today that Bob Plath is staying at home to conserve his energy for the festivities tonight, but I hope many of you go to the festivities tonight, because this is, to watch Bob Plath is to watch a man who is living his life purpose. And I'm telling you, I think he's been around as long as he has and continues to breathe, because he says, I have more forgiveness work to do. So that's, yeah. So forgiveness has a very simple form to it. It's very simple. It's sometimes difficult to do, but it's really pretty simple. It's letting go of resentment. It is literally untying ourselves from resentment. It is letting go of our desire to retaliate. It is celebrating the need to not have anything be different. So that's the simple, the simple and difficult part of it. All forgiveness is letting go of any desire to have anything be different. What happened, happened, and we let it go. So this season is Mother Earth letting go of her children and then not resenting it. We imagine that she does not resent us eating her children because she gives us another harvest year after year after year. So at this harvest time, what I like to do is kind of reminisce, well, not reminisce, but think about that, things like that patty pan squash. And think about when we say a prayer before we eat, what we're really doing is we are acknowledging that as living beings on this earth plane with form that we have to support, we are literally taking the life of something else so that life may stay in this form, in this body. We are letting a carrot sacrifice itself, or a chicken sacrifice itself, or whatever it is that you call food. If it's not living, it's not food. You know that, right? That's why you really don't want to be eating that whipped dessert. Because when you read the ingredient, what's it called? I forget. Cool Whip, thank God I've forgotten the name of it. So when you read the ingredients of Cool Whip, there's nothing that sounds like food. So what you want to take into your body is living food, but the living food isn't living as a carrot or as a chicken anymore. It's living as you. And so that's one of the things that happens on this earth plane, is that life sustains itself through sacrifice. We don't talk about sacrifice very much, but I do on Lunasa, because on this earth plane, we sacrifice something in order to have something else. The teaching is we can have anything, and that's actually true. We can work our consciousness and work our life so that we can pretty much have anything or any experience, but what we can't have is everything and every experience. So we have to make choices. We can't have everything or experience everything because of the limitation of time and space on this earth plane. It's specific to this bubble in eternity. So something is sacrificed all the time so that something else may come into expression. And we're doing it all the time. Most of it is not too emotional for us. Like yesterday, I sacrificed a longer walk because I needed to work on my talk. And so we always make choices about what we're not going to do or not going to have so that we can have this other thing or experience this other thing. And when we think about that as sacrifice, it is what we do over and over and over and over on this earth plane. And when we think about people in the serving professions, and when we think about parents, and when we think about teachers, they sacrifice some aspect of their life for serving another all the time. And actually, at the end of life of this bubble, at the end of this bubble life, we sacrifice our very existence in this body so that others can come along and have this experience in this bubble. We can't all be living all the time. There's not enough space on this planet. We know this well. So all of this choosing and letting go of some things and liking other things and forgiving when we have to sacrifice, and all of this happens in the unchanging container of eternity. Remember, here's all this letting go and sacrifice and life for life here in the bubble, and it all is contained in eternity. And what we want to do this month is be able to touch the edges of our bubble so that we become more and more and more comfortable with eternity. So the lesson today is eternity is the container. So let me tell you a story about sacrifice, which I find extremely odd that I'm sharing this in church because of the nature of this. So I've been preparing to go to Ireland, and so I've been reading all my Irish books and the Druid history and all that we know about the Druids and you know the stone builders that were originally in Ireland, and then the Celts that came to Ireland, and the Druids were the priest caste of this ancient people that we don't know much about, but we do know some things. We know that they practiced human sacrifice. I got this one story from two different sources. So I want you to just remember how you felt when you were listening to Wild Mountain Thyme. Go right back there and let me tell you this wonderful story of sacrifice. So they found a mummified body in a bog that had a wristband of fox and obviously had been ritually killed. A young man, beautiful, tall, young, perfect, with this beatific look on his face, obviously cared for in life and in death. And with some of the other things that were near him in this bog, the researchers imagined that there was a philosophy which is kind of close to the philosophy of Irish mysticism now, which is this life and the next life are very, very close together and they intermingle. You know, there's all these jokes about the three Irishmen that go and have a drink all the time and then one dies and they still order 3 drinks because, you know, they drink their friend's drink, but he's right there in the bar with them still. So they imagined that there had been years of bad harvest, and the greatest thing that they could do was to send what we think he was a Druid priest, a perfect Druid priest, to speak to the gods on behalf of the humans so that the harvest could be better the next year. So I want you to get this feeling that it was out of love for all his kinsmen that this Druid said, yes, I will go and speak on behalf of my brothers and sisters. I will go to the gods. It is an honor for me to go to the gods and speak on behalf of my brethren. And so this was carried out. This was done out of absolute love. And when we think about sacrifice being contained within eternity, what we do is we look a little bit deeper than the surface, back in something extremely not emotional, is this cute author. But I had to find some way to steer my mind toward the transcendent and the timeless, away from the immediate and the shallow. I wanted to cultivate a contented and thankful spirit. I wanted to appreciate the glories of the present moment and my ordinary life. I wanted to put the happiness of others before my own happiness. Too often, these eternal values got lost in the hubbub of everyday routines and selfish concerns. And so, what we are doing is taking elements of this life and saying what is eternal about them. So anytime we give up something so that we or our family or another can have something wonderful, we are acting from love, and love is the eternal quality. Love is eternal. Love is like the immortal realm. Love transcends time and space. Love transcends all of these levels of existence, the dimensions of existence. I mean, can you not still feel the love of someone that you loved in this realm and they're now in the beyond? Can you not feel that? I feel the love of my mom all the time. I feel the love of my cat Aphrodite all the time. I mean, I can just think about it and there they are. So this is what happens when we think about the Earth Mother loving her grain children, loving her hooved children, loving her two-legged children, and allowing the sacrifice of some of them to sustain the others of them. It's out of love. And when we can make those choices in our life that are sometimes easy, sometimes hard, but always out of love, we are touching the eternal when we pay attention to it. So I've been talking about sacrifice. Now I'm going to talk about Thanksgiving. When we feel thankful for the harvest, when we feel thankful for the benefits of someone else's sacrifice, when we feel thankful for the beauty of the earth, when we feel thankful for our loved ones that are around us, when we feel thankful for our pets, anything, we are in that realm of love again. I am thankful for something that I absolutely love. When we take it just a little bit farther, that love becomes the doorway into the eternal realm. And we are saying, this feeling of thanksgiving links me to everything and everyone everywhere. Am I making sense here at all? Okay, because this is what I want you to do when you think about what is meaningful in your life. What is the quality that is eternal in that thing, that circumstance that is meaningful for you? And then what is that eternal quality that's resident right in there? And then you're touching eternity. And then the whole eternal realm isn't so scary. It's just beautiful. Okay? Forgiveness. When we make a choice to sacrifice our bitterness and let it go into harmony, when we make a choice to relieve ourselves of resentment, when we make a choice to move from condemning something that has happened to us into a place of just letting it be, that is self-love. And that is the doorway into eternity, is because yourself, your essence, yourself that lives in this body is already eternal. And when you honor that self by relieving it of bitterness, You are touching eternity. But forgiveness is even richer, because we can say, another way to look at forgiveness actually is to hold everyone else harmless. And that's a big deal sometimes when someone has intentionally harmed you. But if you can just go a little bit beyond that and say, even though they did this out of whatever mindset they were in at the time, I hold them harmless because as an eternal being, I cannot really be hurt. I cannot be damaged. I cannot be destroyed. I cannot be bruised. I cannot be harmed in any way. Oh, my body can. And my emotions can if I allow it. But me, I cannot be hurt because I am an eternal being. Now that's faith. And faith is an eternal quality. And that is where we touch eternity. And even another way to look at forgiveness is to say, I can see myself in the actions of that person. I perhaps have not gone to the extreme of somebody, but I can see my own rage, my own feeling of separation in that person. I actually can feel my oneness with that other. And then oneness becomes the eternal quality that we can use to touch the eternal realm. So we can go on. Anything that is important to us in earthly life. Let's say the creation of beauty. We have a number of artists in our congregation. So why do you do that? Why do you create beauty? It's got to be for a transcendent reason. It's either because of love or because of joy or because of expression. You just have to get it out. All of those, love, joy, and divine expression, are all eternal qualities. And so when you're doing your art, if you simply suggest to yourself, in this I am touching eternity. Although I am touching the clay, I am touching the brushes, I'm really touching eternity. So then one more, the creation of order. I'm sure we all do some tidying at one time or another. We do cleanup, we do reorganizing of our files, we do picking up the house, we do laundry, we do folding the laundry and putting it away. Every day probably we do something to create, to reveal the natural order that is in the universe, because order is heaven's first law. And if we simply link that to eternity, if we say this work that I'm doing right now, this tidying, this simple task of doing the dishes is bringing heaven into my experience, we are touching eternity. So you see, we can do this with pretty much anything. Anything that we have a deep connection to, even if we have a frivolous connection to it, we can deepen it. When we sit down in it like the duck, and we realize that in this single act I am actually interacting with eternity, our edges become porous. And I think it's really important for a spiritual being to have porous edges so that we can feel our oneness with each other and with God. So I have personal friends whose spiritual practice includes baking, raising chickens, brushing the cat, and cleaning the house. And anything else that you do on a regular basis, you can link to eternity. And when our awareness of our eternal home, because that is our eternal home, is eternity, when that is nourished, we feel less afraid, we feel less separate, we feel more connected with Spirit. So in conclusion, we come from eternity. It's good for us to remember eternity when we're here. And then that's where we go after we leave this body behind. The poem by William Wordsworth, this is just a part of it, I love it. Our birth is but a sleep and a forgetting. The soul that rises with us, our life star, hath had elsewhere its setting, and cometh from afar. Not in entire forgetfulness, and not in utter nakedness, but trailing clouds of glory do we come from God, who is our home. Thank you. So the ushers are going to pass an almond to you right now for the inner work, and I want you to just hold that almond in your hand while I take a moment as they're passing this out, going very quickly. Don't think about which almond, just take an almond. The going deeper is, in every earthly process, I see eternity. And so just think for a moment about the earthly processes that you are going to do later on today, and just see if you can imagine touching eternity. So I think I'm not going to talk as the almonds get passed out. I'm going to ask Bodhi to just start doing some beautiful little almond music. And then we'll have the inner work. Oh, perfect. So just hold this almond in your fingers for a moment and feel its little rough edges. This, of course, was encased in its own little house. And perhaps there have been thousands and thousands of almonds that you've eaten. But looking at this one right now, which you will eat if you want to, this almond could have been a tree. The Divine Mother makes all of the almonds so that more almond trees may live. But this almond is harvested for you. So think of the tree that has sacrificed its life. A tree that could have produced thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of more almonds. Because this almond is going to go into your body, making energy and cells so that you may live your life purpose. But maybe your almond had the consciousness all along that it would not become a tree, but that it would become part of you. Maybe there was a consciousness in this little seed that said, I'm waiting for the one that I can make more health in, more energy in. and forming a relationship, a love relationship with this almond. This is where we are touching eternity right now. So put it in your mouth and don't bite down yet. It has a kind of an almondy flavor to it. But you're going to taste this almond with more awareness than you've ever tasted anything before. You know actually that there is a ritual of our ancestors of putting the seeds that they were going to grow their harvest from in their mouth for 30 seconds. And then it is shown that those seeds know exactly how to grow to produce exactly the right enzymes and properties for their people to keep them the healthiest, to keep them disease-free. So if you wanted to, you perhaps could plant this little seed that you're sucking on, or do it another time, knowing that there is a relationship that is growing, growing, growing between you right now and your almond. Plan now if you're going to bite down on it on the edge or on the middle, which might be the most fun for you and most fun for the almond. And then with great awareness, fulfill your plan. Knowing that the way you bite down sacrificed the other way that you could have bitten down. A lesson in all choices that we make on earth. Taste this almond. You know, even as you're chewing it, that its properties are being made into your body. And so this almond is now a part of the love that you are going to express, the peace that you are going to express. This almond is a part of the eternal properties in you as you live in this world. It has contributed to your experience of the eternal realm. And you and your almond are now really one. Blessed be.